and welcome to Sunday Morning Cornerman. On this episode of the SMC, we discuss all the relevant fights of UFC Shenzhen. I will do all of this with the co-host of Sunday Morning Cornerman, who can be read at Sherdog, Cage Side Press, and heard on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network on Between the Links, where he is, again, a handful, as I usually say. He's the great Keith Schilling. Keith, how are you?
Good, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, well, we'll get to that in a second. But, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm excited to get back on a podcast with you, although wasn't crazy about the card. But, we'll do what we always do. We'll produce great content when we are handed very little to work with. So here we go. All right, Keith, let's run it down. The event marked the promotion's first visit to Shenzhen in China. A flyweight bout between Luana Carolina and Wu Yanan had been rescheduled and was expected to take place at the event. The pairing was first scheduled to take place at UFC 237. However, Wu pulled out of the bout due to injury and was replaced by Priscilla Cachoeira. In turn, Luana suffered from a fractured spine and was forced to pull out of the event. She was replaced by Mizuki at the weigh-ins. Wu weighed in at 129 pounds, 3 pounds over the flyweight non-title fight limit of 126 pounds. As a result, she was fined 30% of her purse, and the bout proceeded at a catchweight. A welterweight bout between Li Jingliang and Elizio Zaleski dos Santos was initially scheduled to take place in November of 2018, and UFC Fight Night Blades versus Ngannou 2. However, Santos pulled out of the contest due to a knee injury and was replaced by David Zawada. The pairing was rescheduled for this event. The rest of it doesn't really matter. Listen, with all that being said, I'll tell you how I view this podcast, and then you tell me how you view the card. I view this podcast as a tune-up fight, right? It's been a minute since we've done one. We got Khabib-Poirier next week.
Yeah.
We're going through some tough times, you and I. There may be counseling in the future, and it's just reps. It's all reps. So that's how I view the podcast. As far as the card goes, I think this card has more global importance than national importance. So you tell me, what did you think about this card going in?
I mean, it's just a filler card. I mean, it's kind of, you have 11 fights on the card after the cancellations. About 9 of them were totally focused for the Chinese crowd, the audience that the event was held. And then everything else was geared towards hardcores that want to get up at 3 a.m. or 6 a.m. to watch these cards. Other than the main event and maybe the co-main event, there's nothing that really jumps out as a fan. There's absolutely nothing that jumps out if you're a casual fan. I mean, even the main event. It's just a card filler, but it ended up having huge implications. So it was kind of one of those ones you might not want to get up at 6 in the morning to watch it, but you missed a big historical moment if you didn't.
So let's talk about this and I want to get into this later when we talk about why this card mattered, but I'll touch on it briefly. If you're the fans, if you're guys like us, if you're the UFC, is this kind of and I want to give a good analogy for this, and I don't want it to seem forced, but it's something along the lines of, is this one of those things that makes you a lot of money, but no one really cares about? Something that you have to, the UFC, I mean, there's such a huge audience. The effects that it had in China in terms of how, Weili Zhang was searched and on all their social media. I mean, this is a big deal to the UFC, right? It's kind of like when Hollywood makes a movie and domestically it bombs and then it goes overseas and they make their money back. How do they just kind of say this is what we got to do? This is a necessary evil of the fans in the States hating the way all this goes down, but it's something we got to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened. You said that nobody cared. I mean, that nobody cared on this side of the world for the most part. I mean, of course, the most hardcore fans cared, but generally speaking, you're not going into your work and talking to your casual buddy about the main event. Did you miss, are you looking forward to the big strawweight title fight between Zheng Weili and Jessica Andrade? I mean, this is so bad that we have a new champion, and I have to keep looking down for pronunciation to make sure I say it right. So that shows you how much someone who is a hardcore, someone who's been watching for 25 years, I had to look down to find the pronunciation of our new champion.
Yeah.
So, but it's kind of a very focused point of view from very close. But when we step back and we look at the global view, the UFC went from not having a foot in the Asian market, like obviously One Championship has, that's what they're doing, what's rising doing, to now having probably the biggest star in the Asian market overnight, or early morning, whatever you want to say. But you can tell that it was so focused on China, even by the start times, starting at 3 a.m., which was 3 in the afternoon local time. They could have pushed that back to 6, which would have been starting at 6 a.m. Now, the West Coast would have got screwed no matter what. But, 6 a.m. is still a terrible start time for the East Coast, but more manageable. You're more likely to get up at 6 a.m.
Right.
than you would at 3 in the morning. But they didn't care. All they cared about was China. They were trying to get the fight between Weili Zhang to be like a prime time spot, which would be about 9 o'clock in China. They want to have the most people in China watching at that time, which makes sense for them to do. But I'm just showing how the entire card was focused on China. Right.
And even I remember on Twitter leading up to the fight, it was like everybody was talking about staying up, not getting up. Right. So there was they're just going to go through the night.
Coast.
Yeah, West Coast.
East Coast. It's the East Coast opposite. You would go to bed early to get up early. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you're right. It was a very China-centric card, which makes sense. So I think that let's get to the main event. Obviously.
But just think about this for a second.
Go ahead.
Think about the huge impact we have, because think about that side of the world. Everyone keeps talking about the population in China. You're talking about, there's 3 mega powers in the world, if we're being honest. There's America, there's Russia, there's China. Or those are the 3 biggest powers. Well, obviously, MMA in America has been booming. It's been since The Ultimate Fighter has really taken off. Russia recently has come in with this surge of Russian talent, Dagestan, and I mean, Khabib is a big star and all this. And now the UFC is finally getting into China. And then the first time they put someone in that chance, most people thought it was like, hey, get the Chinese fans to watch, but she's not going to win. And then she wins. I mean, people didn't even think she deserved the title shot. Never mind win, and then she wins, 43 seconds? I mean, it was the perfect scenario for the UFC. Absolutely perfect.
Here's where it gets interesting, I think, is that if you're saying that there's 3, and this is just moving forward, because people have the UFC is a little bit like Saturday Night Live in the sense that people have been writing their obituary forever, right? It's not what it used to be. This was the prime time of it. I think they're going to be in an interesting place in the next couple of years, because if Weili Zhang can go on a run, and I want to talk about her fight, but I mean, if she can go on a run, and if Khabib can go on a run, which it looks like he can, they're going to be in a situation where from casual fans and American fans, it seems like the UFC is beyond its prime. Mm-hmm. But globally, they'll be bringing in so much more money, and and the way that they'll market the cards, and this is the conversation for later in the show, but it's just like they're set up, like you said, having champions in all 3 major powers in the world to
they do.
Right. To sort of set themselves up differently from a financial standpoint. I mean, it's interesting to see how they move forward. All right, Keith.
Yeah, it's funny that right now we have a Russian star, we have a Chinese star. I don't know if we have an American star right now, which is really funny when you think about it. I mean, who is the American needle push? I mean, honestly, maybe Nate Diaz, but he's not a champion. And that have
Cejudo.
Yeah, I'm saying that's our biggest star, Henry Cejudo.
But he's a lower weight guy. He's got all the intent.
There's no Ronda Rousey. There's no Brock Lesnar. There isn't that American star. But what I want to point on, I want to jump on the point you said, and you're 100% correct. I don't know if Weili Zhang that's going to improve the American market.
No.
But the global market, we're not going to catch up to the NFL in America, but MMA might pass the NFL worldwide now in the popularity. Tennis is very popular in other countries. It's not really that popular in America. And other things. We might stop moving up the ladder, especially if we can get China on board with MMA. It really can become such a popular sport internationally that it's a great thing for the UFC. It's a really great thing.
Here's the secret. Depending on what we have in this girl, and we got to get talking about her fight. But but I will say this: depending on what they have in her, if they have her fighting in the States, you might be able to satisfy both masters in the sense that she'll already be a star in China. It just will depend on when they're going to view her. If we have, I don't know that they'll get up at 3 a.m. for her. That's the question.
Yeah,
they would do that. Then you can put her in the States against people that we find, put her in the States against Nama Yunus or something like that, and then you win on both counts.
But you know what happens though? If you get her on the pay-per-view, it starts going off. The main event of pay-per-view in America is midnight. Well, that's 12 in the afternoon there. So it'd be kind of sunny, almost like an NFL kickoff time.
That's true, and all they care is to see her.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be that weird. It wouldn't even be. It's going to be tough for Americans on the Chinese time, but the Chinese time on the American side is not so bad. That's why I kind of thought that maybe they should have pushed the card to Sunday, being Saturday night in America, and it would be Sunday, afternoon and there.
That's true. Yeah.
But it's also, I get what they did. They're trying to maximize the amount of Chinese people that was going to watch.
There you go. All right, let's get on to the fight, Keith. Weili Zhang has been on quite a run and abroad since. She lost her first fight of her career and has been undefeated ever since. In a narrower sense, she has won all 3 fights in the octagon, defeating Danielle Taylor, Jessica Aguilar, and Tisha Torres. So she is certainly deserving of her title shot, despite, like you said, some people thinking that she wasn't. However, her opponent on this night, the defending champion, Jessica Andrade, has been on an even more impressive run, defeating Claudia Gadelha, the aforementioned Torres, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and Rose Namajunas, finishing Karolina and Rose inside of 2 rounds. So they were evenly matched, one would think. Well, not MMA pundit extraordinaire Brendan Schaub. He said coming into Andrade would smash Zhang. Keith, you could tell that statement wasn't on his special because it was hilarious. And in the end, it was Zhang who did the smashing, taking Andrade out in the very first round. Keith, let's talk about Zhang's performance and whether or not this belt is going to be a hot potato or if she can hold on to it for a minute.
And her performance, it's 43-second knockout. You can't be any better. It was perfect for her. I agree with Brendan Schaub before. I thought Jessica Andrade was going to beat her. I thought Jessica Andrade was going to run through her. I thought she was going to be too physical. This is a girl that you're talking about the experience levels. Jessica Andrade has fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's fought Rose Namajunas. She's fought absolutely. We can go through the people she's fought. Compare that to Weili Zhang. She has not faced that competition. She wasn't supposed to be. She got the title for beating Tisha Torres, who's coming off a loss. So if anybody now ask this way, if anybody said before the fight, "Hey, it's a 43-second knockout," you're like, "Oh man!" I knew Jessica Andrade was going to win, but man, Weili did that bad. She got knocked out in 43 seconds. Remember going in this fight, Jessica Andrade was the one who knocked out Karolina Kowalkiewicz with the huge punches and stuff. It was her. She was just the punching, killing machine, not the one who slammed Rose Namajunas, knocked her out, not Weili. So, yeah, you couldn't talk. It was absolute power. Before we move on to the next fight, I want to ask, we're going to get a little controversial, but what I love about the win for her is we already talked 2 things. Obviously, having a Chinese star does so much. But the other thing, it opens up the division right now. It is because she skipped the line, she hasn't faced, there isn't girls that can't face her. When Demetrius Johnson was champion, Joseph Benavidez had his chance and it was like, hey, go back the line. There's nobody really at the back of the line. It's wide open now, as in any division in MMA. And that's great, I think, for maybe to bring some excitement to the division. Because, hey, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's back in the mix. Imagine if Michelle Waterson wins. Imagine if Michelle Waterson defeats Joanna, pulls up an upset. Imagine the American Asian, versus the actual Chinese fighter. And the marketability of that fight. Imagine Michelle Waterson going back to her roots, going over to an Asian country, fighting Weili in Asia. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. It does. There's a lot of
Warriors too. I'm not leaving.
Answer off. There's a lot there.
Rose Namajunas. Eventually, Jessica Andrade.
We talked a lot about what this means for Weili Zhang. We talked about a lot what this means for the UFC. Let's talk about Jessica Andrade. Do you think the UFC did her a disservice by having her first title defense be that? Because it seems like some of these champs will lose their belts. These huge, and I wouldn't call this a huge upset, but Tyson was in Japan, Rousey was in Australia. Sometimes when you have these champions traveling to expand the sport, and listen, in fairness, Andrade wasn't traveling to expand the sport in the way Ronda Rousey was. Ronda Rousey was bringing her star to somewhere else. Andrade was the person that was bringing her belt to some place that we wanted a belt holder to be. So did they stack the deck against her, and do you think they did it on purpose?
Yeah. I 100% agree. Tyson went to China fighting another American, Buster Douglas. Ronda Rousey was fighting Holly Holm, another American. It wasn't. So, yes, she was the first one to go over and be the enemy. But then Lomachenko just did it last night in boxing. He went to some British guy's hometown and beat him up. And I don't follow boxing, but I did watch the fight. Shows you how much I paid attention. I don't remember the guy's name that he fought. But it's tough because there's really two ways to look at it. She came in with a lot of pressure. I mean, everyone wanted Weili to win. She's the champion. She kind of was like the afterthought. Weili was a star. But if she knocks out Weili, like I thought she was gonna, or just smashes her, now she just got a huge market of people watching her in a fight that, a different market. It kind of introduced her to more because the MMA guys, the MMA fans are gonna feel watching anyways. I mean, Jessica Andrade, she's not a star, so the market that she was getting, she's gonna get anyways. Right. So putting her in China, she'd have more eyeballs. It was a very, very poor performance on her hand.
It's weird because in the end, I mean, winning cures all, and in the end, you can say whatever you want in terms of the circumstances you were put in. If you win, then obviously you would overcome them all, and that's the point of it, right? So it doesn't really matter. Like they say, if you couldn't go to China to defend your belt, do you deserve to have it? That's kind of.
And imagine the conversation we'd be having right now. We'd be saying, say we just flip it 100%. She knocks out Weili in 43 seconds. We'd be like, wow, how killer is Jessica Andrade? She goes into enemy territory and pulls off the win with the entire arena cheering against her.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Giving her credit.
Sometimes, and nobody really ever talks about this, but sometimes there almost should be, and maybe it's be something we could add, but there sometimes needs to be like diving in the Olympics, how it's like, this is the dive he's doing and this is the degree of difficulty. Not all performances are created equally, and the degree of difficulty on this one, like she would have really got a nice bump had she done what you said, the degree of difficulty being high. Not only did she do it, wow, look at all the odds stacked against her, then that would have been a way to market her moving forward. So,
But you could also look at this. It might have been a no-win situation because if she did smash her, we'd go, oh, that girl didn't deserve a title fight anyways. It was only a marketable thing. So she kind of was in a no-win situation. I know you want to move on, and we're going to breeze through the rest of the card. But I got to bring this up because there's a lot of controversy, and I'm never this guy. I am never, ever this guy.
Oh, my God.
Before I talk about this, I want to put a little caveat. I am not saying that Jessica Andrade would have won the fight if this – even though I did predict her to win, and I get predictions wrong all the time, so I'm not like – I don't have, a bitter taste in my mouth. I don't care about picking fights wrong. She ran into a right hand by Weili. Weili landed a perfect right hand. However, there were some elbows, a lot of them. There was 5 elbows thrown. I believe at least 3 of them were directly in the back of the head of Jessica Andrade. Have you seen the replay, and do you agree with me?
No, I watched it live, and I agree with you on the strikes. It's just, I don't know. I think strikes to the back of the head are about the most difficult thing for a referee to regulate because where they're at, like, do you just the question becomes if you're a referee, and I think my answer would be yes. But here's the question: when you see the first one, do you just stop the striking altogether? And if you do, then what do? You stand them up. I mean, that's the only way to handle it properly.
To me, and again, I want to say I'm not saying this is why Jessica lost. I'm just saying you get rocked, then you get elbowed in the back head 3 times. You have to recover from the right hand. It's a lot harder to recover from the right hand when you get elbowed in the back head 3 times. But who knows? Maybe she's not hitting the back hand. Maybe she catches the side. Maybe she's in uppercuts. Maybe she doesn't recover. I'm not saying Andrade lost because of that. However, if a referee sees an illegal knee, instantly you stop. But why is it different with an illegal punch in the back head? When it's punched in the back head, it's always, watch the back of the head, watch the back of the head. It, basically saying you're hitting the back of the head, stop doing it. And then if you keep doing it, they stop. Well, it's an illegal foul. We don't let someone poke someone in the eye and go, oh, stop poking in the eye. But because it's only your first one, go ahead, keep punching him while you can't see. Like,
here's where I think it gets weird for me because you just said she would not have lost.
No. I'm saying I don't know if she would have lost.
No, you're saying she would have. Like, you don't know what effect the punches to the back of the head had on whether or not she would win, and you can't know. But I guess my question is this: you very rarely see someone get hit in the back of the head and just keep moving forward normally.
Yeah.
Typically, when you see someone in a fight get hit in the back of the head, there's a result to it. Like it's either the beginning or the end, because usually we question these punches to the back of the head. It's rare that you see somebody like, he's getting taken shots to the back of the head and he seems good, he's fine, and then he goes on to usually that's why they're so controversial, because you see them, and even though they may not be the last shot, they're in the succession of the last shots of the fight, or they're at a part where the guy gets hit in the back of the head and gets wobbled. Very rarely do you see a guy just get hit in the back of the head, or girl for that matter, and eat it and everything's cool. So I think it has a bigger impact on fights than we like to say. And if it does, then I'll pose this question to you and the audience. Or I'll make the statement and you can process however you want. I've seen more people eat knees, standing or illegal. I've seen more people eat knees and continue than I've seen get hit in the back of the head. And do you know what I'm saying? So to your point, is if we get so involved, there's something about a downed opponent that drives us crazy as fans.
It looks bad.
It does. So there's something about that. Like,
isn't the same.
If you could somehow,
reason why it's illegal in boxing,
right?
The equilibrium's back there. You got the spinal cord, and I've done. I mean, I fought MMA once. I won, by the way. Thank you. I've trained. When people punch you in the back head, you are in this. There's reason why it's illegal. Now, a big tough situation is, one, I'm watching it on replay. When I saw it live, I saw elbows. I didn't see them in the back head. But when I saw it in replay, I said, oh, man, those look like they're in the back of the head. Now, mind you, I'm having slow motion replay, and I'm not getting what the referee had. He has one opportunity in the heat of the moment. He doesn't know what's really – he doesn't know that Andrade's going to get knocked out 10 seconds later. He doesn't know that. I have the luxury of knowing that. But also the thing that bothers me is, yes, what's the back of the head? Well, you get the mohawk line, or you get some people say between the ears, or what. I think it should be between the ears. I think that's pretty easy. I think it's easy to me to tell if this is the mohawk line or just a little bit off the mohawk line. To me, it should be between the ears. If you go behind the ears at all, it should be illegal.
I agree, especially since what we've seen before with people getting hit behind the ear and getting dropped and stuff like that. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think here's the problem they're running into, and all sports have run into this, is that they are at the mercy of technology. And sports, when you and I were kids, you could beat the hell out of a receiver and no one cared. You could foul guys in the lane in basketball and no one cared, because the technology didn't exist to show you how egregious the foul was. Well, now the technology does exist. There's 20 cameras that show you every angle. So if you're going to be scrutinized in this way as a referee, then you need to err on the side of, well, first of all, fighter safety and caution, but also, like, we're going to know. We're going to know. And if you don't know, you damn well better know, because the whole world's going to see it. And as this sport gets bigger, people are going to care, in a much larger way. Now we just kind of made our peace with, okay, a bunch of punches were being thrown and some were behind the head and some weren't. Yeah. There's going to come a point when there becomes a lot of scrutiny over it.
So a couple of things before we move on, because I know, because you might have we'll listen to the recap. This is the only thing they'll pick up from this whole thing. So that's why I don't want to move on to yet. One thing I do want to point out, like I said, I had slow motion. I also have the perfect angle. The referee doesn't have the luxury of being in the exact perfect spot like we got to, because we got 10 cameras. They got to find the best camera angle. Referee happens wherever he's standing. Okay, so I acknowledge that. I'm not even saying the referee did a bad job. I'm really not. I'm not saying that the fight should be overturned into a contest. It wasn't called. It might not have had no effect. So I just want to point that out. And Big John McCarthy, who is in my opinion, still probably one of the best referees. I mean, he doesn't referee anymore, but if he was, he's still one of the best. He believes that it wasn't illegal. So take that what you will. But the biggest thing is she ran into a right hand. It was a perfectly timed right hand. She got too aggressive. She actually, right before that, she caught Wei Li with a nice 1-2 combination. Got a little too aggressive, and Wei Li just caught it perfect, and she was rocked, and she didn't recover. So I credit that first. The elbows, whatever.
Well, and listen, moving forward, I guess my question would be, what is it that there's certain things about the construct of sports that we have a problem with, and there's certain things that we don't, meaning that in certain sports, we think that, for records to be true or the sport to be legit, all things have to be equal, right? Every football field's 100 yards. But yet in baseball, all baseball fields are different, right? So, and there's certain things that kind of and like one of the big things in baseball is we can't have robots calling balls and strikes. We still have to have the human error, right? I'm like, I don't understand why, but okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I don't understand about fighting. why can't there be someone, and you're saying, the referee might have been in a bad position. Fine. So why not have a referee outside the cage? There's a guy that's checking cups and mouthpieces, and why not have that guy outside the cage and have a way, like honestly, and I'm just, please tell me why we couldn't do this. And this is an honest question. A foul occurs and they blow an air horn and the fight stops. Mm-hmm. We all know it's 2 minutes left in the round. If you hear a certain air horn or a different sound, the fighting stops and we figure out what the hell that sound was for, and then we go back to it. Mm-hmm. I get why people push against that, but really, what's the big damn deal?
I actually don't hate I don't hate the idea, and if you haven't seen this before, you might hate the idea, but when you see it in action, it actually works. In NCAA wrestling finals, you'll have two referees. You have the main referee and you have the backup referee. The backup referee, his main job is to, if the main referee has a question, he'll come over and ask him and say, what's your opinion? He gives his opinion. Or if he can see from his angle something that is egregiously a foul, he will jump in and stop. Only that. He's the backup. A takedown, whether it's a takedown or not, and the main referee calls it, he doesn't come over. If he doesn't come over and ask the opinion of the other referee, it's a takedown or it's not a takedown, whatever. But if there's a egregious foul, so if there's the backup referee, he's seeing a knee to the down opponent that the other referee didn't see, or he's seeing a fence grab, or he's seeing an eye poke or a hit to the groin, or whatever, he can jump in at that point and say, oh, stop, you need him in the groin, or whatever, So I don't hate that idea. I don't hate having a main referee and then have a backup referee. I don't hate it.
The craziest part about this is the only reason why we don't do it is because we haven't done it. And
that's right.
Which is insane because everybody should be in favor of this. If I'm a fighter, I'm in favor of it. If I'm a referee, I'm in favor of it. Mm-hmm. This is one of the only sports where you have such, a contest with such high stakes, and it's left to one man. Yeah. Everything else has multiple referees.
That's right.
Multiple things, multiple actions, multiple angles. And it's like, when you think of how fast this sport moves, Conor McGregor knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. Imagine if you're the referee and you had to say, was that the temple or right behind the ear? In 13 seconds.
Sure.
That's a lot to ask. So, I mean,
I don't want to
I think it's time.
I don't want to outlaw a punch to the face where a guy ducks in, because that's not. But I mean the clear, you're aiming for the back of the head. And I don't think Whaley was aiming for the back. I think she was throwing a punch and it was an angle, and I thought she was hitting the back. But I got in a debate with Nolan King, and he believes it wasn't the back end. So there's people that I respect their opinion that don't believe. So I'm not saying this is clearly hitting the back of the head. I'm not saying that. I kind of feel like it. I feel like the back of the head shots is very similar to like holding in the NFL or pass interference, where it's a judgment call. And like they say NFL, you could call holding on every single play. If you really go by the letter of the law, you could call pass interference on every single play. So I think it might be one of those situations where if you watch pass interference and you're in New England, you're screaming pass interference, but they're playing St. Louis and they're saying, no, that was not pass interference.
Yeah, I agree. I just think for me the difference and why I think there should be some more strides towards what you and I are talking about is that to call holding on every play would completely change the scope of the game.
Sure. No, I know.
Now we can adjust, after a couple of years, but I think that this doesn't happen so much.
That's right.
We couldn't do right by it.
That's like when Roughing the Passer first came out. People were like, oh my God, you touch the passer, it's going to always be like that. Then people just adjust it. But one thing I want to say, and I know we're way off topic, but I'm telling you, we're going to breeze through these prelims. I remember when knees to the down head was a big deal.
Yeah.
It's kind of changed after a while, but when Musasi kneed Chris Weidman, it seemed like every week there was something fights were ending with the knees back. It was a big controversy. And everyone had these tons of solution. Oh, make sure the palms are down, one hand, two hands, this point. And I said, listen, it's a simple solution. Either you allow knees or you don't. Either knees allowed every position in the body, or knees allowed none. Now, obviously, I'm pushing for knees allowed everywhere, other than the groin. I've seen the back of the head, but just protect yourself from knees. That's my solution. But or go the opposite way and just get rid of knees. I'm not saying I want that. But there wouldn't be any controversy. Did you get hit with the knee? Yeah, you got hit with the knee. Done.
There you go. All right, let's move on to the co-main event, Keith. Elizeo Zaleski dos Santos is a name that seems to be on the tip of everyone's tongue when it comes to prospects on the rise. He drew a co-main event slot in someone else's backyard, which is typically what you see when the promotion wants to know what they have in a guy. There is a raise the level of competition, and then there is make him fight in front of a hostile crowd. His opponent, Li Jingliang, is coming off a performance of the night victory over David Awada. Jingliang came in the dog, and on paper, everything seemed teed up for Zaleski dos Santos to keep the train moving, but fights are not fought on paper. They are fought in cages, and Jingliang had other ideas. Now listen, dos Santos has amazing footwork, great-looking techniques, and he swings for the fences, but it was that aggressiveness late that cost him. He chased Jingliang and ultimately was met with an uppercut that wobbled him and some combinations on the feet that called it a night. So, Keith, talk to me about this fight through the lens of, has Zaleski dos Santos been exposed? Was it just a tough night? Do we have more than we thought in Jingliang? What are your takeaways from this fight? Because I thought it was really actually a well matched up, good-looking fight. What are you taking away from this?
Well, I think most people, when they were looking at this fight, was picking dos Santos to win. But I don't think anybody was saying, like, this was a mismatch. I think a lot of people thought Jingliang is a very good fighter. I mean, he's been kind of the guy for China until Wei Li showed up on the scene. He looked better than I've ever seen him. This is the best win of his career. He had a lot of pressure coming in, co-main event in his own country. He looked fantastic. I was impressed with the power punches. He was landing the power shots, and Zaleski wasn't. He was landing kicks and knees. He was mixing it up. And, I mean, we kind of looked at dos Santos as that, like, top 15-ish kind of welterweight guy, just on the, kind of in the mix with Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal and all these guys battling to get into the rankings right there. And I think the best division. And now he's out, and now it's Jiang. I can't even say this. I can do Russian names. I can't do Asian names. He's in the mix now. He's in the mix. Yeah, I mean, it's great performance. I ain't got nothing else to say. It was fantastic.
When I watched this fight, you and I, it's funny, man. We're old school, and I think that you and I respect what we like to call these professional fights, right? Guys come in on weight. And then I think throughout, these guys both had good gas tanks. They both had good cardio. What impressed me most about Jingliang was that, I mean, dos Santos, I said it in the intro, that guy swings for the fences, man. He throws a couple of kicks on you, maybe a technique to throw you off, but he's throwing that big right hand hard, and Jingliang kind of moved out of the way, and I like the way that he was kind of dealing with a guy with a capoeira background who has really good, solid techniques. He does spinning kicks, and I mean, he's a sharp guy, and he can throw a lot of crazy shit at you. He handled it well, man. He just kind of knew where it was coming from and kind of moved out of the way, had some solid strikes of his own. Both these guys, I think, have bright futures. And I don't think a lot was lost in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Jingliang, he just looked a step ahead to me. It just he had the answer to every single thing. Dos Santos, even when dos Santos realized he was down, tried to pick up the pace in the third round, and he just every time he came in, he was getting time. Eventually, he got rocked with that uppercut and got put out. I mean, fantastic performance.
So keeping with the theme of a couple of guys that not a lot is lost from, professional fighters going in there. Up next, we have a fight that if it were women, Keith, would have been buried on the prelims. Flyweight contenders Kai Kara-France and Mark De La Rosa may well be the future of this division. They hooked it up on this night and put on a hell of a fight. I thought that the fight was Kara-France's throughout, although MDLR had his moments. In the end, De La Rosa's inability to get takedowns seemed to seal his fate. Keith, what did you see in this one, and how much was gained by Kara-France? How much was lost by De La Rosa? Is it similar to the fight we just talked about in the sense that they both looked pretty sharp throughout and not a lot was lost? I liked how De La Rosa kind of came on like late second, early third, and kind of straightened himself out a little bit. But it was obviously, I mean, it was clear that he lost. But at the same time, they both represent themselves well, I thought. Yeah,
to me, it was a competitive fight. It was just, to me, it felt like a B-plus fighter fighting a B fighter. Yeah, and that's a little difference. They both had their places they wanted to fight. Kara-France wanted it on the feet. De La Rosa wanted to get on the ground. And unfortunately for De La Rosa, Kara-France had really good, strong takedown defense and kept the majority of the fight was on the feet. And he was just a better striker. In the second round is when he floored him. Yeah, it's really. I don't know what else to really say. Kara France is just better than De La Rosa. That's it.
Yeah, so what do you see in this guy? And I think at some point we're gonna have to sort of make this official and sort of talk about tiering, right? Because I don't think that the rankings tell you everything that you need to know, right? So my point would be, let's say there's 6 tiers, and this is completely like off the top of my head, and I want to hammer this out more in the future. Let's say there's 6 tiers, right? And tough guys are at the bottom, and then let's say contender series guys are tier 5. Let's just use that for now, okay? And then you get to tier 1 is obviously guys who are championship caliber. Where would you put a guy like Kara France in this division? How far away from Henry Cejudo is he?
I would probably say tier 3. Just to give a little side note, and I know you understand this, but so I'm on the rankings committee for Sure Dog. First of all, I'm not gonna say I agree with every rankings. That's the overall group. Generally speaking, I agree with 90%. I think some guy should be up a spot, down a spot. That said, rankings is not saying if you're ranked 3rd and the guy below is ranked 4th. And we're not saying number 3 should beat number 4. We're saying based on what they've done in their career, this guy deserves the 3rd spot over the 4th. I'm sure I could pull up Sherdog right now and go, hey, I'll take this guy at 7. I think he could beat this guy at 3. But it's like, well, this guy has wins over these 3 ranked guys. This guy doesn't. That's why he deserves the 3rd spot. So just a side note. To answer your question, if we're saying Henry Cejudo's, is in the top tier 1, the lowest level of the UFC is tier 5, probably tier 3. I would leave Benavidez and Formiga and them in 2, and I think he's like that tier right below that. So I mean, he was when he was on the Ultimate Fighter show, he was tier 4 and 5, and he's greatly improved since he left the UFC. One thing that's good for his improvement, he is in one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best teams in MMA, City Kickboxing, which is producing. I mean, they're like the new kids on the block. They're like the Australian team, Fortis MMA. There you go. I got it in again.
There we go.
I mean, Daniel Hook or Israel Adesanya, Kaikar. I mean, just like everybody in that side of the world is with City Kickboxing, and they're just producing champions. And I think you see that result in Kara France. He looked good to me. He looks, if he was talking about a fight against Pantoja. Now, I would favor Pantoja in that fight, but if he beat Pantoja, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this is a complete side note. I agree, City Cut. I thought it was weird that they didn't interview him after the fight, being from City Kickboxing. I was like, he 100% did not get interviewed.
Yeah, he got interviewed on the post-fight show. A lot of times it's just commercial timing and stuff.
That's true. All right, Keith, when I looked at the Song Kanon Derek Krantz fight, I wanted to know who it was booked for. Of course, we needed as many Asian fighters on this card, but why Krantz? Did his name just get picked out of the fishbowl, or was there more to it? His last fight was a first-round loss to Vicente Luque. Since that fight, Luque has gone on to defeat Mike Perry. So for me, this fight was to see what Krantz's level is. Should he be up near Perry like Luque was, or does he have work to do? And Keith, it looks like he has work to do. He lost the fight. It was a unanimous decision. I wasn't overly impressed necessarily by him. Is this a case of that Song Kanon is better than we thought it was? Is this a case of Derek Krantz going to Asia to fight? Is this a case of Luque was, Luque defeating him? Where is this kid? What should I take from this fight?
I'm checking all the boxes you said.
Okay.
I'm going to say something that's Derek Krantz fans are not going to like this, but I don't think Derek Krantz is a UFC level fighter. Or he's very low level UFC fighter. It's hard to say guys UFC level because there's guys outside fighting the region that I think could beat some guys in, but whatever. All I'm saying is he's a lower tier UFC level. I feel like he was kind of right place, right time kind of guy to get in the UFC. Why he was on the main card, he's a fun fighter though. He might not be the most talented, but he's usually an action fighter, bring it forward. And then in this card, he showed the complete opposite. I think the time change hurt him. His gas tank. If you saw this fight, it was a fun fight for the first half. And then both guys were so gassed out. At one point, Song had his hands on his knees looking at him, and Krantz was just standing there like he took like a couple big breaths, and you expected maybe they're getting their breath to have this big finish, and it never happened. And then you watch the first 2 rounds. It was a fun fight, but it wasn't Justin Gaethje all out. It's like it didn't. I didn't understand why both guys were so gassed. I mean, there was some grappling, there was some striking, but it was nothing like much different than say the Cara France De La Rosa fight. I really didn't understand. And it's funny because Krantz is kind of known for his cardio and his coming forward and his ability to take a punch. That's why I was really thrown up. So I think maybe the time change really did get to him. But to me, this is like showcasing selling a Chinese fighter. That's all it really is. It's not the rest of the card. It's not that good. Just I'm not gonna have a lot of positive things to say about the talent. Some of the fights were entertaining, but the talent is very low level as we go down.
All right, let's move on to the Mizuki Wu Yanan fight. Mizuki won by split decision. So I don't know where this fight fits into the larger picture for women's MMA, but Mizuki and Wu Yanan put on a good little fight. I'll be honest, I thought Yanan had it because all I saw to Mizuki was she looked like a female Asian Dan Henderson. She was just stalking and looking to throw that right hand. And I mean, it was like I said, it was an entertaining fight. What did you see in this one? I mean, do you think it was kind of like a one-night stand sort of thing where it was a good fight? Or do either of these ladies have something for their division for the long haul?
No, I mean, if you've seen him, Mizuki is actually, I think she's still like fairly young. I think she's like only like 25, 26 years old. She's not younger than you think. She's been on like the regional scene for long. She was in Invicta. She fought against Verna Jandiroba, and actually a pretty entertaining fight. And I'm high on Verna Jandiroba. That said, she took the fight on 2 weeks' notice. She moved up in weight. And then not only did she move up in weight, but then Wu missed weight. So you're taking a fight on 2 weeks' notice. You're already the small one, and then your opponent misses weight. That's terrible. But it just comes down to what are you looking to fight? I thought Wu landed more punches. I thought Mizuki landed the better strike, the more powerful strikes, which is really funny considering the bigger fighter I thought was losing the power exchanges. She did well on the outside, but when Mizuki got in the inside, I think she landed the best punch. I scored it for Mizuki. I think most people did, but I'm okay with anybody who gave it to Wu. Like, it was a close fight. I don't think there's anything to take away from it because Wu's not that good. Like, she's the low-level UFC fighter, and Mizuki, I feel she needs to go back down to strawweight, that's for sure. She's not a flyweight.
You know, and one of my takeaways from this is like maybe just the MMA gods got involved. I mean, Mizuki did everything right in the lead up to this, taking a short notice fight, you know, coming in prepared, coming in on weight. Wu did not. So I don't get heartbroken when I see someone who's extending themselves and they get the benefit of the split decision when someone else didn't, and they have the brighter future potentially. So I think for this in Mizuki's career, she may look back on this if she ever ends up being a champion up near the top, as that was a fight I took under not the best circumstances and still went through and performed like I needed to. All right, Keith, let's talk about the prelim card. This is the part of the card where the names get butchered and the credibility is lost. So the prelims of the UFC China card, the UFC Shenzhen card, let's have it. Anthony Hernandez defeated Jun Young Park by submission via Darce choke. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the fight, Parker was winning the whole time, and Hernandez just kept going forward, and then he caught him the guillotine, and it was a nice comeback win. I got nothing else.
Here's where it gets funky. Sue Materje versus Andrei Sukmanov.
Yeah.
What do you got here?
So Andrei Sukmanov, he's a local guy. He trains down the street from me, so I'm familiar with him. Sumadari, I believe is how you say his name. Sukmatov broke his pinky very early in the fight, and I think that affected him the rest of the fight. He was kind of becoming, as you were saying, just kept throwing the right hand. He didn't have much, and I think he got in his head. Sumajari was too elusive for him. He kept using a lot of kicks, side kicks, hook kicks, and he just was beating Sukmatov punch, who had no response to it, and he was shooting ugly outside shots. Not a very good showing by the Asian sensation Andrei Sukmatov.
All right, on Jung defeated Karis Ibramagov.
Yeah,
he is standing.
I think it's Ibragimov.
Ibragimov sounds much better. See, you're better with. Was that a Russian name?
Yeah, I write it down by
phonetically.
Yeah, but
that's what
no matter what, I can't do the change. I can do the Russians. The Asian just doesn't flow off my lips well.
So what'd you have in this fight? Anything?
Well, this is a fun fight. And Ibragimov, like almost knocked out Jung like 3 times in the first round. He hit him with at one point he had Jung hurt and he threw like 60 hooks in a row, just throwing it like a Rocky movie, trying to knock him out, and he couldn't knock him out, and it thus knocking himself out, knocking his cardio out.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, he was very tired. It was like it got to about 1 minute, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, maybe 1 minute in the first round when he finally had his last flurry. And then it was like almost a panic. Like, I don't got nothing left. This guy's still standing. And Jung was just relaxed, kind of picked him apart. Finally he got a modified guillotine, and that was it. But it was a fun fight while it lasted. I think it's weird. In a loss, I'm still more impressed with Ibragimov. I feel like if he was with the right coach, he could make some adjustments or even just get more experience. This won't happen again. Like, I feel like if they fought each other 3 years from now, Ibragimov is going to win that fight.
Damir Ismagulov defeated Thiago Moises by unanimous decision, 30-26. A couple 30-27s we got here.
Yeah, I was impressed by Ismagulov. He's a guy that had a lot of hype already. Kind of like was like a little bit of a boring fighter, not impressive. This was impressive performance. This was his best one. He had a lot of kicks. He was picking all kicks. He was poised. He kind of very savvy. Nice power. He landed a lot of power shots. He had really strong timing when Moises came forward. Couple takedowns, good scrambles, good ground and pound. I mean, he won from pillar to post. It was a very impressive. It was a shutout. Really, really good performance by Ismagulov.
Haile Alatang defeated Denai Batjerel. Batjerel, yeah. 29-27. Give it to me.
It's actually it's Denai Benganil versus Alatang. So these guys, neither one of these guys came in with a lot of hype heading into this. This was a fun fight. This was a good back and forth. Both guys landed a lot of shots. What was cool, I thought, for this night was that you know how they just built the PI in Shanghai. They talked about how that Hey Lee is the first fighter from China to hold pretty much his entire camp at the Performance Institute. So that's kind of cool. I mean, that's why they built it. They built it to find Chinese stars. Baganil is the Mongolian. He was from Mongolia, so that's kind of cool. We don't have a lot of Mongolian fighters on the card. The one thing that I was a little turned off is they kept talking about how good Tang Hei's wrestling was. And he did not go to the wrestling to the third round. And then when he went to the wrestling, he had his way. And it was like, dude, it's 1-1. And both rounds were kind of close. You could actually be down 2-run, and then you have this dominant round 3. It's like, I hate when wrestlers forget what they do. I mean, he made it tough on himself. But it is a fun fight. I think it got fight of the night, too. It's an action-packed fight.
And finally, Carol Rosa defeated Laura Procopia by split decision, 29-28, 27-30, 28-29. What'd you have here?
Rosa was the better striker. Procopia was better on the ground. Unfortunately for Procopia, the fight was on the feet for about 99% of the time. So Rosa wins. She did floor her, almost knocked her out in the third. But other than that, kind of forgetful fight between two pretty low-level UFC fighters.
All right, well, moving on, a little bit of housekeeping. You were correct. The Alatang Haley Dana Battergel? That was the fight of the night. Performance of the night was Wiley Zhang and Li Jingliang. So all deservedly so. Let's get into the fun stuff. Trending up, trending down. I had Kai Kara France as my trending up. It was his third fight with the promotion. He finally beat a name. I think he looked good and could be on his way. He came in ranked 10th, and this might be the beginning of a run. Trending down was Derek Krantz. I just expected more from him here. I don't know what. I mean, it just was very. I think I know who your trending down is going to be, but for me it was Krantz. I just thought that this would have been his chance to sort of right the Luque fight and turn things around. I didn't see it.
Yeah, usually I do 3 because this is not a card. I only did 2 trending up. Damir Ismagulov, he had I thought it was the best performance of his career. He was really good. And the other one, I'm lumping a whole crowd of people. I'm saying Chinese MMA was the big winner tonight. 5 out of 6 of the Chinese fighters won.
I like that.
5 out of 6 Chinese fighters won. Li Jingliang obviously had a great performance. And then Willie Zhang, I mean, your star is born, and hopefully I can learn how to pronounce your name correctly because of that. This is a market that not that long ago was completely, there wasn't really even a market, and now there is, so that's great. Trending down, I'm actually going to go with Celeste dos Santos, and I got to explain why. I don't think his performance was that bad, but because the welterweight division is so stacked, his winning streak is over, and now he's got pushed way to the back. It's hard to get a title fight in that division, and he just made it even harder. He just had to add 4 or 5 wins. He's got to get 3 or 4 wins just to get where he is. And the other one, Andre Strickland, even though he broke his hand, I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass. That's a guy he could beat, even with one-handed. It was not a good performance.
All right, let's move on to Not For Nothing. I only have a couple here. You know what? This Daniel Cormier – so, okay, not for nothing, but Daniel Cormier doing a breakdown of Khabib is a little bit curious to me. I get that that's his gig. I get the Khabib fight's big. But it's like, listen, there's no way he's going to give us anything that's going to matter. I mean, if you are breaking down a undefeated fighter, you need to tell me the holes in his game. And I doubt that Daniel Cormier is going to spend his ESPN detail time talking about the holes in Khabib Nurmagomedov's game. So that's the first one. Also, not for nothing, is it that important to interview Jessica Andrade post 40-second knockout that you put us in the middle of a clusterfuck that is a British guy interviewing a Brazilian person and it going through the filter of a Brazilian translator and a Chinese translator?
Yeah.
It's the biggest cluster I've ever seen
I was going to say
interview. And was that interview that necessary?
Yes,
that we needed to have that scenario played.
Yeah, it was. I 100% agree. I wrote that down for Not For Nothing. I don't know if it was worse, all those translations, or the fact that they weren't ready for it. They had to talk no. I say, then you say. Bisping's saying, then you, and then you. They didn't have it planned. There was a 20 seconds where they were all trying to figure out what was going on freaking ESPN. I mean, that wouldn't happen in a NFL broadcast or something. I mean, that was terrible. I mean, you figured it was English, translated to Chinese, answered in Portuguese, translated back in English, translated back into Chinese.
Dude, it's like you're not interviewing Shogun Hua, and he might be putting his gloves on the canvas here.
Yes.
You're interviewing someone who was in her first title defense.
Yeah,
lost, and I mean, and quickly. What did they think?
And it wasn't a big controversy thing, you got kneed illegally. I mean, there was a little bit, but I'm saying there wasn't some crazy thing happened. Yeah, it wasn't Demetrius Johnson losing his title after 11 defenses. It was their first title defense.
But in fairness, I mean, that could have been it. Maybe that was they thought they were going to get her complaining about the shots. Who knows, man? But it ended up being so crazy that you couldn't even get to. You know
what I think it was?
What?
I think they had time to kill because it was a 40-second knockout.
Yeah, that's true. All right, you're up.
Not For Nothing. I already said some of these start times. I already said that. Anthony Legoff talking about using his wrestling. Sorry, I already killed some of my Not For Nothings in my breakdown. Not For Nothing. Michael Bisping was talking about Jessica Andrade, saying you have to fight anybody when you're a champion. That's what champions do. Michael, we got to forget that you ducked Yoel Romero and Jacare Sousa because you wanted to wait for George St. Pierre, and you wanted George St. Pierre and Dan Henderson instead of Yoel Romero and Jacare and rematch with Luke Rockhold and all that. Come on, Michael Bisping. Not For Nothing. Andre Strickland, please don't have your wife as your cornerman. Come on, she's not even a fighter. Give me a break. And Not For Nothing. Mizuki Inoue, time to move back down to strawweight. Even though you won, don't stay at flyweight. You're way too small. I did talk about the translation. My last one, Not For Nothing. Weili, you're a star. Do not drop the UFC belt when they give it to you.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta get that one right. All right, shocker of the night. I mean, I put the main event. It seemed easy enough. I was surprised. I busted Brendan Shaw's balls a little bit at the beginning, but no one saw that coming, I don't think, especially after the performance against Namajunas. So, yeah, I would say that was the one that surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly – there's nothing else you can top that. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about technique of the night because I had an interesting one, and I don't know. Listen, in a perfect world, the technique of the night would be the technique that swung the night, if you will. And I just like this technique, and I wanted to have this conversation with you, so that's why I'm making it my technique of the night. I liked it when Kara-France went to throwing kicks at varied levels late in the fight. Like the end of the second, beginning of the third, he was throwing like leg kicks, then body. Well, one of the body kicks kind of swung the fight a little bit, but body kicks to leg kicks to high kicks. Let's talk a little bit about this because we don't get into this as much as I think we should and as we would desire to. Level changes with strikes and level changes in general. You know, we had a conversation a long time ago, and I need to get back to this, but you know, my belief that there's four main things that affect fights. You know, pace and level and cardio and all that stuff. So, but level changes with kicks. I think that when you have a guy, and for casual fans out there, I'm going to compare baseball to MMA in this way. There's the school of thought with baseball that says you only have to have two pitches, a fastball and a changeup. And if you got these guys guessing and they don't know when the fastball's coming, they don't know when the changeup's coming, you could be a success. Same thing I think with some of these strikes is that, you know, the athletes are what they are in this game. And when you don't know if a head kick's going to your rib cage or your head and you're starting to react to it, you have a split second to decide, am I protecting my head or my body? And most times people opt wisely for the head. But I think that that's what these kicks at different levels do. So talk a little bit about that and then get to your technique.
Yeah, no, I definitely kept people guessing, striking when they think you're going to wrestle when you think you're going to strike. And I mean, that's something that I thought George St. Pierre was the best at. He was George St. Pierre gets credited as being like the greatest wrestler. No, he wasn't. He was just great at disguising his wrestling. My favorite technique of the whole night was just something that's rare. We don't see a lot. Was Damir Asimagulov when he got a takedown on Moises, and he was standing in he was standing guard and he was standing over him, and he threw a couple punches to the head, which caused Moses to cover up his head, and then he started pounding the body. Like he threw like 5 or 7 hard strikes to the body, and I bet you that hurt Moises more than the punches to the head. You know, don't forget the body work when you're on top, and it still hurts when you punch him in the body. So that was really stood out to me. I really like that.
Do you think there's something to that? The body's the body, and whatever you choose to attack, your body will react? Or do you think there's something to that when you get taken down, you have an expectation of what's coming next, and if someone attacks a part of your body that you're not expecting, your body may not be prepared to deal with it? So if you took me down, I'm expecting you to hit me in the head. I am preparing myself both mentally and physiologically to get hit in the head. If you start elbowing my ribs, does it affect me differently, or do you think the body's the body?
I think I don't know. That's a question. I don't really know. That's a really tough. Somewhere in between. How about that? I got it in. But I like seeing that. That was fun.
All right, let's go to the cut list. This is Key's favorite because he loves to see people lose their futures. So who'd you have on the cut list?
I only have one because many people were making it. A lot of people who lost were making their debuts, and I think you should at least get 2 chances. I thought about saying Sukupak because he's like 2-5, but I'm going to give him a pass because he broke his hand. But I would be okay with a cut. But the only person I'm cutting is Derek Krantz. He's lost 2 in the row. He's 0-2 in the UFC. His first fight was against Vicente Luque on short notice. So I thought about giving him a pass and doing nobody, but this segment would be kind of boring if I said nobody.
No, I'm with you. I think the only way to give Derek Krantz a pass is that it's in China. That's it. But my thing is, you can't be having lost in the first round. And listen, there are certain unwritten rules in MMA, and I'm going to expound on this a little bit just because I agree with you on Krantz. There are certain unwritten rules in MMA, in my opinion. If you lose in the first round of a fight, you can't come back gassed in the second. In the follow-up fight, you at least have to be in shape. That's an unwritten rule to me. So him gassing is more problematic to me than him losing.
Yeah, and my rule is if you lose to Song, why be in the UFC? That's why be in the UFC. So sorry, I'm sure we're gonna lose some listeners who are big Derek Krantz fans, but yeah, I think it's time to sell him back to LFA.
All right, let's talk about from the notebook, and I'll touch on this real quick because we kind of keep up with this stuff. Let's talk about Fitzgerald and Bisping. Bisping actually disclosed to a fighter, it may have been Kara France, I saw this on Twitter, said something like, am I going to see you next week? And Bisping's like, no, they only put me on shit cards, no offense. Which I thought was
That's
hilarious. And it was especially what you would expect Bisping to say. I've kind of taken to calling Fitzgerald and Bisping the brother-in-laws, and that's their relationship. That's their body language. That's how they're acting. Now, if two guys are brother-in-laws long enough and they live in the same city, they might get tight. How do you think they're doing? Are you liking them?
I think they're good. I really, I think the play-by-play guys are usually, I think usually most of them are pretty well. As long as they stay in their lane, they don't try to do too much. I think Fitzgerald does that. I think Bisping is terrible in the cage. I think he needs a lot of work in the cage interviewing, and I think that's very hard and that's uncomfortable to do. But I think he has grown so much by his color commentary. You can tell he does film study. You can tell the way he talks about the fighters, the way he points out little things before the fight. I think Michael Bisping done growing. As far as doing shit fights, hey, you're the new guy in the block. As long as coming, it's like, hey, in my department, you come to the department, you're going to third shift, you got to pay your dues. It's kind of the same thing. Hey, you got to do ultimate, you got to do China card, you got to do contender series, you're going to have to pull off seeing these guys fighting on shaky camera phones to do your film study. You're not going to be able to go to UFC Fight Pass to get it. That's how it is. But I can see Bisping 2 years from now doing UFC pay-per-views. So I think
that's who he is, though. Like, he's going to apply the same work ethic to being a commentator as he did to his fight career. This is how I look at play-by-play, and you can kind of process this when you talk about a later date. Everybody's vanilla ice cream. It's moving from vanilla ice cream. It's what are the toppings, right? So with Fitzgerald and Bisping, I still have vanilla ice cream. Maybe I got some hot fudge. Dominic Cruz and Daniel Cormier and Joe Rogan, I get the sprinkles, I get the cherry, I get the whipped cream. I get a lot more than these guys who are just the vanilla ice cream, maybe a little something extra. That's where I see them. I see them that far evolved in the ice cream hierarchy.
All right.
Lastly, a couple of lastlies. First, let's talk about why this card mattered. I think it's pretty obvious. Why do you think this card mattered?
That's just showing what you have in the big market, showing UFC fans what you have in the big market, showing the big market what you have in the UFC, and kind of marrying the two together. And I think it was perfect for the UFC.
All right, I was going to do a little before we let you go, but you and I get a lot of that on Between the Links. I got this new show with Craig Allen, Early Stoppage. I get around all of MMA in that show. So is there anything that's on your mind in terms of like Bellator or, let's talk real quick. Did you see the face-off between Alberto Del Rio and Tito, and everybody's grabbing a mic. Cale McLaren's grabbing a mic. I never seen.
We don't deserve Tito. Listen. That's me and Kyle's thing. We don't deserve Tito.
I've never seen a dick measuring contest in a promo for like everybody was grabbing the mic. I mean, you could say all promos are dick measuring contests. Sure. But when Campbell McLaren kept jumping in, it's like, no, I own this case. I'm like, what?
Wow, Campbell McLaren is
right now.
He's the guy who's the boss, but somehow he's still on the commentary team. That guy loves himself.
He does.
So what
do you think? I mean, I don't know if you and I have ever really talked about this. Do you care about that fight? I think it's bigger than people are giving it credit for.
Do I care about Tito Ortiz
fighting Alberto?
No, I don't care.
I mean, I'm not saying it's gonna be a great fight.
I care about Tito because we don't deserve Tito. Those little like funny things he says that he's not trying to be funny. We don't deserve. I can't really get on someone for stumbling over the words. I do it. I mumble a lot. I understand that.
Right.
I try to be more intelligent than I am, and I realize I try to use a phrase that I don't normally use in regular conversations, and it doesn't come out that way. Like I get it. I am the Tito of MMA media. Like I will stumble over words.
Right.
But Tito's not even another higher level than me, man. So we don't deserve Tito. Tito, we don't. He's just too good.
So what else you got from around MMA? Anything on Contender Series?
Well, the Contender Series is over. Thank God. I did 10 weeks of film study and great, and so I'm kind of excited that's over for a little bit. But this Saturday, man, we got 2 cards. We have the UFC in the afternoon, and then I think is it Bellator that's that night, right?
I think so. Let me check.
Yeah, we got UFC during the afternoon and Bellator. We got Ryan. It's Bader in Chicago, yep. And the beginning of the featherweight tournament, which I'm excited about. The first round, I'm not as excited, but as it goes on, there's some good talented guys in that featherweight. And you got Pitbull and Juan Archuleta and Antonio McKee, Daniel Strauss. I'm trying to think of guys off the top of my head. Darian Caldwell, Emmanuel Sanchez, Saul Rogers, Samson. I mean, there's a lot of this. I don't know. I can't think of all the top of my head, but there's Henry Corrales, Adam Borix, Derek Campos. I mean, there's so many good, talented guys in that 60. There's a reason there's 60 instead of the normal 8. So yeah, I'm excited. This Saturday, it's like, man, you can watch the afternoon card, UFC pay. You started the early prelims all the way to UFC pay-per-view, boom, right into Bellator. It's gonna be great.
So we don't typically do this because it's stepping on Max and Marcel a little bit, but just real quick, give me a minute on Nurmagomedov and Poirier. I mean, do you think Poirier has a real shot? Well, just in your thoughts on it.
Do I think he has a real shot? Yeah, I do. I do think he has a real shot. Dustin Poirier is a guy that has been greatly discounted, counted out. I did it. I thought me and Marcel, actually, his last fight, I filled in for Max. And me and Marcel both picked Max Holloway to smoke him. And we both were wrong. That said, until I see Khabib lose, I got to take him. Poirier is a good – I mean, he's a strong wrestler. He's not Khabib. He's with he might be with the best team in MMA. All due respect to Team Fortress, but he might be the best team in MMA with the American Top Team. But they have to come up with a perfect game plan. And I mean, Khabib is like, when he gets you down, I mean, he's going to get him down at least once. And it's like, are you going to be able to take that? And then when he gets you down, he comes. It's like he's an animal getting in on your legs, but when he gets you down, it's a whole nother level he brings it to. And that cardio that you had before, will you have that fighting off the takedowns of Khabib? But it has a little bit of a weird vibe, being that it's in Abu Dhabi. We've had that when they're in these weird countries. Yeah, I shouldn't say weird countries, but like countries that they're not normally in.
Yeah,
things are a little different. So hey, maybe we're gonna have another. I mean, it has a little bit of a Holly Holm Dustin Poirier. I mean, a Holly Holm Ronda Rousey vibe. Maybe Poirier can pull up an upset. I give him a shot. I mean, I think he's one of the 10 pound-for-pound best fighters in the world. I think I greatly underestimate. I think we all greatly underestimate. This is the guy that, I mean, you talk about improvement, especially in the striking. I think he has improved. I mean, this guy, even when he was a featherweight, he was a, fringe top 10 guy. But, man, you're talking about one of the best pound-for-pound guys in the world right now. So, yeah, I don't think you can count him out. But I understand why Khabib's a pretty big favorite, and he should be.
Yeah, well, they say the only guy that took her around from Khabib is Conor. And okay, I agree with that. No, I agree with that. But I think I think that Conor has more power than Poirier does. But I would call Poirier a better striker. More well-rounded. I think Poirier's got better hands than Conor does. All around.
That's. I don't know. I think Conor is a better striker.
Yeah.
But there's levels to it. There's different. There's so many scenarios. I think early in a fight, Conor's a better striker. As the rounds go on, the deeper you go in the fight, I think it starts switching from Conor to Poirier. Like, if I'm fighting Poirier and I can fight Conor, I'd rather fight first and second round Poirier and third, fourth, and fifth round Conor than the other way around.
Here's where I give the nod to Poirier.
That makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. Here's where I give the nod to Poirier in terms of being a striker. I'm worried about more kind of strikes from Poirier than Conor. I'm worried about that left hand from Conor, but I'm worried more about – I think Conor wants to finish people with his left hand. I just do. And I think everything – now, early in his career, he did a better job at walking people into his left hand than he has recently. But I worry about more from Poirier. So that's the only reason why I think he could get Nurmagomedov and in a way that Conor couldn't.
The one thing about Conor, it's so funny for me to defend Conor because when everyone was on the Conor train, I was kind of the guy pumping the brakes a little bit on him. And now I'm like – I feel like everyone has pumped the brakes on him so much that we forgot like how special this guy was. I mean,
right.
he was the first two-weight champion. People forget that. It was only 2 fights ago. He put in an absolute destruction of Eddie Alvarez. Now, it was almost 3 years ago now, but for him, it was only 2 fights ago, and he went against Khabib, and Khabib makes everyone look bad. I mean, there's nobody who's gone against Khabib yet, other than Gleison Tibau like 7 years ago. That didn't look bad. That's what he does. I mean, he beat Edson Barboza like he stole something. Like he dishonored the whole Khabib's family or something.
Yeah.
And it's always the powerful wrestler was always the tough stylistic matchup for Conor. It's always been the blueprint. I mean, going back to Joe Duffy, who was not even a wrestler, just taking Conor down and submitting has always been the blueprint. But
I think we grade Conor so harshly because he's at the top of the game and he's up so high that in the way that we assess him, it's like people are saying he hasn't won a fight in however long. It's like, dude, he was in there with Floyd Mayweather, potentially the greatest boxer of all time, in his first boxing fight ever. And he's in there with Khabib, who may or may not be the best lightweight of all time. We'll see. So it's like, if you're assessing how does Conor go against those guys, yeah, I mean, those are two of the best of all time. I mean, historically the best of all time.
Sure.
Not prisoner of the moment best of all time. Historically, without question, two of the best of all time. So I think that, like you said, I'm interested to see. I do see a little Holly Holm and Dustin Poirier. Here's where it gets interesting. Khabib Nurmagomedov has the best technique for what he does. He does what he does better than anyone else does what they do, which is his claim to fame and his what gives him the feather in his cap, right? But Dustin Poirier has every other intangible. He's mentally strong. He's prepared to go places other people are not. I give Poirier the nod in a lot of like intangibles, but will all of those things put together be more than just simply Khabib's amazing technique? That's the question.
Yeah. One thing that I really was impressed by Poirier in his last fight was he started off so strong against Max Holloway, and it was like, wow, man, I've never seen Poirier look good. Then he started to slow down, and Holloway started raising the volume, and it's like, oh, this is what you're expecting. Holloway's volume was getting too much. He even said that he got a little panic, like, oh, man, this is what he does, and I'm falling into it. And then he went somewhere deep. He went down and found that place to dig deep and win the fifth round, to win the belt. You know what I mean? While Holloway has all the momentum is on Holloway's front, and it's probably 2 rounds each, he found a way to dig deep, to recover, and to win the last round, to win the belt. That's what impressed me about Dustin Poirier.
I got one for you. You could draw parallels, in my opinion, between the Daniel Cormier-Stipe Miocic fight and the Khabib Nurmagomedov-Dustin Poirier fight, in the sense that Stipe is great with his hands. The only thing that would have caused Stipe to win the fight against Daniel Cormier is exactly what happened. Daniel Cormier wanted to fight Stipe's fight, and he fought it a little bit longer than he needed to.
Yeah.
He fought it successfully for a while, and he fought a little bit longer than he needed to. The reason why I would pick Khabib in this fight is because I don't think Khabib has any point that he wants to prove other than I can fight my fight and beat the shit out of you doing it. And he's content to fight his fight. He's trying to prove a point. Daniel Cormier was trying to prove a point that he is such a great fighter, he can fight someone else. It's a John Jones point. He can fight someone else's fight and still win. Khabib Nurmagomedov says, I will spend my entire career fighting my fight and no one will ever stop it. And I think they're trying to prove different points. And I think Khabib's point that he's trying to prove does not leave the door open for Poirier to get what he needs to get to win that fight. Yeah. That's my thought.
Could be. I mean, and I think we also underestimate Poirier's power. I think he has more. We never really think about him as one big punch power, but he has hurting power, and then he adds a bunch of them in a row all together, and that's how he gets to knockout. I think we underestimate his striking. I'm excited. I'm very excited for the stylistic matchup for this fight. I think people are really underselling Poirier. Though I'm taking Khabib. I give him a much better shot than most people. I think we both do. It sounds like we both give him a better shot than most people.
I think that he's been in there with Poirier's been in there with everybody, man. He's been in there with Conor. He's been in there with Alvarez. He's been in there with Gaethje. Gaethje will drag you to hell for a fight. The problem is he won't drag you to hell the way Justin Gaethje will bring you to hell and then stand up fight with you. Khabib will bring you to hell and put you on your ass in hell.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right?
He's sticking you in the one room you don't want to go in.
Exactly. That's the difference.
He's bringing you to hell and he's dragging you into the torture room.
So Gaethje has the mental toughness to be in a fight that goes to hell. I just don't think he has the mental toughness for Khabib's version of hell.
And the last thing I want to say about this is what an amazing story would it be if Dustin Poirier wins.
100%, yeah.
Just like a grinding kind of guy, a good guy who does a lot of the right stuff, does a lot of stuff in the community, going all the way back to the MTV show where he was, he wasn't even the star of the show. He was the friend, all the way to now. That'd be an incredible story.
I think it'll be interesting to see, how they market if Poirier wins. I mean, we got a lot of good guy fighters out there that are champions, and I would be interested to see how that moves forward. All right, before we get out of here, tell everybody about this Loudmouth MMA Network. Tell them what's happening, what shows are on there, what they should be listening to.
Well, we just keep growing, man, and we got more shows coming. I know we keep saying that. We're trying to work some kinks out with those shows we have, get a little scheduling thing going. But we have this obviously this show the which is where we recap the UFC card. We missed last week. I was on vacation. We had a little scheduling conflict, but we're back in it. We hopefully do this all the time. We have the Between the Links, which you produce, hosted by the great Mike Heck. I'm on it every week with Davison Baker and Craig Allen. We have a special guest, usually a pretty decent guest that usually kicks all our butts. We have the Not Safe for Work show with Fred Kirby and Kyle Steele. That is a kind of an R-rated, in-your-face, not scared to say it like it is kind of show. We have the breakdown with Big Marcel and Max Freeman. They do a great job. They do all that. That's kind of what we did, but not the entire card, not just the main event, where we could kind of focus on one fight. And then we have MMA yesterday. It's kind of been on a whole just kind of schedule thing. Kyle had a baby. His wife had a baby. We're going to get that back. We might be introducing more hosts to that. And then we have tell them about the new show. Tell them about your show.
So we have Early Stoppage with Craig Allen and I. So a lot of these shows are similar in certain ways. Like, I like Between the Links because it's a panel show. I like Keith and I because of our chemistry, right? And the way that we talk about fights and how in depth we go. I like the recap show because of how in depth they go. On Early Stoppage, basically we just take the news of the day and we're trying to give you as clean of a show as we can. Some of these shows in the entire MMA landscape, they run a little bit, long. They just kind of get on there. Craig and I are trying to keep this show as clean as we can. It's going to be a half an hour. It's going to be time segments, and we're just going to kind of get in and get out, be concise, and talk about as much as we can in different ways. My other favorite part of this show is we have a lot of fun, like Keith and I do with the Not For Nothing and all that sort of stuff. We have our segments of like over-under, what are the odds, all these different things, would you rathers. Those are the things I think that make that show interesting. And then I think Craig and I have a nice vibe as well. So I think the show is off this week because Craig is getting married. We wanted to sneak one in, but we didn't want to give you guys a show that we weren't that wasn't up to par. So we couldn't work the scheduling out to sneak one in before he got married. I wanted to be the guy that did the podcast with him last as his bachelor, and I didn't work that out. So maybe I'll do the first one as a. Well, no, he's gonna be on Between the Links. But yeah, I like the show a lot. I like all the shows. And again, I've said this in the past on other podcasts. The fact that we all get along on this podcast network and yet disagree, I think gives us a unique perspective to this. We all have our opinions, but yet we do it in a way that you could tell that we get along and like we'd be fun guys to go to dinner with or whatever. So yeah, I'm excited about the new show. I'm excited about all the shows. The network's growing, and there's literally nothing like the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network in the entire space. So there you have it. Anything else?
That's it, man. I think we get out of here. I think it was a good enough card. I give it a C overall. What would you give it? C plus maybe? I give it a C plus. New champion, I'm gonna give it a C plus.
As usual, the podcast was much better than the card because that's how we roll. We take a card that was largely not interesting and break it down in a way to make it interesting. So because of that, here's the favor you can do us: like, subscribe, follow, tell your mom, tell your friends' moms, tell your mom's friends, tell everybody about the Sunday Morning Cornerman. And as the great Alexander Gustafsson said, the show is over, guys.